you have to realize when you start a business, your primary job always pretty much is marketing and sales.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Exactly.
if you don't do that, if you can't do that, you got to hire someone to do that for you, because otherwise your business will not move forward.
This is not something you want to handle yourself. I promise you, you could get in big trouble later on if you don't understand what you're doing and how to protect yourself. This is your business. You need to protect.
I don't care what industry you're in, what you're looking to start, what you're looking to do. There's always someone with access to a person that does something like what you are trying to accomplish. And that should always be your first step, is go talk to someone that's done it.
What's up, Cub? How you doing?
I'm good.
So we're only 10 minutes behind. No big deal. So welcome everyone. This is the Start It or Scrap It podcast. I'm Mike Turkanian.
And I'm Gummy most days.
Most days. And today you're definitely Gummy. Actually, I invited the wrong person, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
So this is the podcast where we take your questions about starting, running, closing, operating, whatever has to do about anything with business, so that we can get you some advice, good advice, hopefully, some advice on making it happen. And
I think we've established it's advice.
It's advice. And so we're live on TikTok right now. So if you have questions on TikTok, please put them into the comments, and we'd love to get to your questions so that we can get you some advice on running business. We want to see everybody succeed. We want to see everybody do a good job, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, sometimes the ideas just aren't worth it, and we might give you that idea, some advice on that as well. But realistically, we want to get you some good advice so that we can help you move forward in your business. And so if you're on TikTok, please put it live and put it in the comments. We'd love to get to it. Otherwise, we will be over on Reddit, and we will take questions from some of the subreddits and see what people are asking about and try to get them advice too. So what's been going on in your world, man? I'm down with the split screen going. We're in different locations now. I'm down in Texas at the moment, which surprisingly is really, really cold. It's like 30 degrees, like low 40s down here.
Okay. That's about the same as it is here.
Yeah, but I'm also 1,000 miles south.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of odd.
It is. It's very odd. So I asked people around. They said it's very unusual to be this cold this time of year.
Weird. Gummy looked like he's in Italy. Oh, new snaps. That was the wrong guy he invited.
Oh. Yeah, it's the wrong person. Sorry about that, people. Anyway, so what's been going on in your world, man?
It's been a slow week because of holidays and stuff like that. But I don't really know. We're doing year-end tax planning. We're buying a bunch of stuff because we're making money and we got to spend some of it before we get too big of a tax bill. And we have some equipment that needed to be replaced. And I thought about doing it next year, but after talking to the tax consultant, she's like, just go ahead and buy all of it now. So we did.
Yeah, and there's good reasons. There's good strategies for doing that. So again, we're neither of us are accountants, so we can't really give tax advice, but we can talk to you about some of the things that we do when we're talking taxes. So one of the things that you might not recognize as an entrepreneur, again, we're talking United States. I'm not sure about other countries, but in the United States, depending on when your fiscal year ends, for most people and most companies, it ends December 31st. Although when you set your company up, you can actually choose to do a different fiscal year end, like some people do September 30th or July 31st or something like that. But for most cases, it's December 31st. And so what happens is at the end of that year, a lot of times it's what's on paper. So if on paper you made a profit, even if the money's not in your bank account, you owe money on those profits for the most part.
Yeah, it depends on whether you're on an accrual basis or a cash basis.
Right. So yeah, we're not getting into that.
So, but it's kind of interesting because we have two entities, right? One is a C corp and one is an LLC. One is on a cash basis. The other one is on accrual.
Right.
So sometimes we can actually legally move money around between the businesses, and it changes when things have to be recognized, right?
Yeah, that's a
So
tax strategy. So
yes.
I wasn't going to get into that, but since you brought it up, I might as well. So what sometimes our customers do, our clients do, is we set up multiple entities. So you'll have entity A, entity B, and entity C, and they'll all be on different fiscal year ends. And sometimes what you can do is if they're complementary businesses. So like say A is a contractor, B is a housing association, and C is houses themselves. They can all work together where if A's fiscal year end is December 31st and B is July 30th, 31st, and C is the September 30th, if A has a tax bill coming because they're going to have too much money, they can get a bill from B. They pay B. Now B, now you can extend that out another 6 months or so until fiscal year end. We call it ring around the rosy. So
Yeah,
it,
that's
it, it,
basic.
it is a possibility. It is a thing that you can do. You got to be careful. You got to do it the right way. Talk with your accountant about it. But as long as it's legitimate expenses, that's what you can do. You can use one of your businesses to pay another one in order to offset that tax bill, or not offset it, but at least to push it out until you find something that you really do need to get. So let's say next year, you can't do it this year, but next year you need to buy a $20,000 piece of equipment. You need to buy that. What you can do is if you can push that money, that profit out to another business, and then bring that money back in later on. Now you can use that money instead of having to pay all the tax on it. You can now use that money to buy that piece of equipment next year. Right. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. So but tax strategy is something that everyone should be looking at right now, because it's, the end of the year is coming up. And if you haven't been planning to take care of your taxes,
And there's been changes to the tax code as well.
lots of changes, so many changes to the tax code. So if you haven't been, so whatever you've done in the past, it might not work this year. It might be different because of the changes in the tax law. So I would absolutely suggest that you speak with your accountant or CPA sooner than later, because you might still have time to make some good planning.
We started last month because some of the stuff that we have, in order for us to take either the profits or losses, have a 30-day binding period. So a lot of times it takes us 30 days to get out of it. So we don't want to be doing that mid-November and cutting it too close.
Yeah. So now, interestingly enough, we do have a question from TikTok. So, and again, anyone else on TikTok Live, you're more than welcome to ask your questions, put them in the comments, and we'll get to them live on the podcast today. So this is from Marcus. It's funny. Marcus Artie Pants, who says, "How do I even begin with filing taxes for my small lawn care company? We don't really have money for a lawyer and we're not experienced business owners." So there's a couple of things there, Marcus. First and foremost, are you registered as an entity with your state? Like, are you an LLC or a corporation? If you're not, then your business is running as a sole proprietor or a partnership. And what that means is, and again, you're going to want to speak. You don't need an attorney to speak with this. You need to speak to an accountant that'll file your taxes for you. But what it means is that whatever profits you made as for the lawn care company, if you're a sole proprietor or a partnership, it just goes right to your personal bottom line. So let's say, for example, you have a job and you make $75,000 a year at that job, and then for the lawn care company you made $8,000 in profit this year. Your personal taxes will be based off of the 75 plus the 8, so $83,000. That's basically that's how it works, right? Now, if you happen to be a corporation or an LLC, and depending on how your LLC is taxed, you could have a separate tax return due for that LLC or corporation. So what'll happen is so let's just stick with the corporation. The corporation will pay the tax on the $8,000, and then there's what's called Schedule K, and there's all kinds of different things that can be done where somehow you may wind up, owing a little bit of money based on that. But your accountant can help you out with all that. So it really comes down to whether or not you are registered as an LLC or corporation, and what type of LLC you might be registered as, meaning if you have an S Corp election or something like that. So there are a variety of things that have to happen in order to figure that out. Gummy, any thoughts?
No, I mean it's a basic. Go see. I mean, if it's that small, go see like an H&R Block. Even they have the basics um, of how to do business taxes, whether you're an LLC or if it's a pass through. But I would talk to someone and have someone else file those taxes because I have a buddy of mine that ended up $76,000 in the IRS hole because he didn't realize he had to put certain expenses and certain things forward.
Oh,
And,
man.
once you get into that hole, it's almost impossible
It's impossible.
between penalties and interest and whatever else, because Uncle Sam will get his cut.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, but so two things that, and again, we're talking United States here. Two things that people don't realize, and sometimes I don't understand, is when it comes to owing money to people, debts,
Yep.
whether it's to a bank or something like that, there are two debts that are not forgivable, which means that you cannot discharge them in bankruptcy. One of them is taxes. You know the other one? Student loans.
well, my brother-in-law just got $62,000 forgiven.
No, forgiveness is different.
Right, but yeah,
Discharge.
yeah, that doesn't discharge when you pass. That
Right.
that debt passes on.
Exactly. Well, it passes on to, you can pass on to your estate, but what I'm saying is
Correct.
if you file for bankruptcy, you can't discharge your student loans. And you can't discharge any debt owed for taxes and such. So point being that you will always owe that money to the government.
Yep.
So make sure you take care of it. Get good tax advice.
Absolutely. So I saw New Snaps was asking, can you do this with materials instead of just equipment? And yes, absolutely you can. We run a piece of equipment, and there are certain parts for it that are between $3,000 and $5,000 a piece, and it uses 5 of them. So we are looking at, and here's the beauty of it: I can order it and pay it, and even though it's a 60-day delivery, it doesn't matter when it arrives. It matters when I pay for it.
Right. Exactly.
So I can take the expense even though I don't have the item in my possession. So as long as you've paid for it, if you're on a cash basis, then yes, you can expense all that on that year, because cost of materials goes when you pay for it, not when the item is sold.
Right. So, again, these are things that you can talk to your accountant about, and they can absolutely help you prepare.
And Jesse just said, is the tax code in the U.S. not clear? The tax code in the U.S. is a giant gray area for the most part.
It's like this big in a book.
Yes.
It really is. It's huge. It's
And
so
then there's contradicting things in it, and then there's things that should apply but they don't. The tax code here is a mess, which is why you normally need someone that knows what they're doing to take care of it.
So I hope that answers your question. New Snaps and Marcus Artie Pants. If you have any follow-ups, please put them into the comments and we'll get to them. In the meantime, we're going to go over to Reddit, and we are in the entrepreneur subreddit. And this is from Kindly Show 3187, who says, I'm 25. Most of the people I went to high school with are planning weddings, have a nice job, or are climbing a corporate tree or whatever. Meanwhile, I've spent the last 8 years in my room learning music production, Python, Django, etc. And it took a lot of energy, but I love every minute of it. I don't have a degree, and right now I'm broke. Last month, I finally launched the MVP of my first startup. I poured everything into it. I got 15 free signups and no revenue. I honestly fell into a depression. I tried to fix it by doing some cold outreach. It didn't work. I realized I can't hide behind the code anymore. I have to become a marketer. That's very true. I'm committed to turning on the camera and building a personal brand on Twitter to drive traffic. I'm also polishing a second app to handle the social media side. My plan moving forward: stop crying about being 25. Good. Use my own tool to handle the SEO. Launched my second app to handle Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and get on camera and document this journey. This life feels like a roller coaster, and I don't know if it's just me or if it's like that for everyone. Nope, it's for everyone.
If you are an entrepreneur, it is a roller coaster. The highs are really high, and that rush when you go off that edge, and you start going down, and then as you get down that roller coaster and your stomach I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's yeah. And that can be day to day. Like actually that could be within a day. You could have a really good morning and a really horrible afternoon.
Exactly.
Like,
So, and that's every day. I mean, it's just it is these ups and downs,
but
these roller
I
coasters.
mean, the good thing is he's enjoying what he's doing. He seems to be liking it a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and like that's half the thing. And the big thing is you have to realize when you start a business, your primary job always pretty much is marketing and sales,
Yeah.
right? Like
Exactly.
if you don't do that, if you can't do that, you got to hire someone to do that for you because otherwise your business will not move forward. Right?
Right.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. It doesn't matter how great your product is if nobody buys it. If you don't market it, if you can't sell it, you can have the greatest product in the world. You could, you know, solve world hunger, but if you can't get that product in front of someone, you're never going to do it.
No, exactly. So yeah, and that all comes down to obviously the marketing of it
Yeah.
and the
I,
sales.
I do like his strategy though, with documenting building it, right? So
Mhm.
like letting people see the ups and downs of building an app and launching it and doing all these things. It's actually a very basic, good social media strategy, especially for places like TikTok and even Instagram. The founders' journeys, they they normally get quite a bit of an audience. It's just you got to get in front of the right audience. So like if you're in B2B, it doesn't matter if you get a million views and none of them are business owners, right?
Right. So let's talk
But
about that though. So let's get this. Let's give kindly show some more advice here, and everybody in general. So
mhm.
he started out. He built this product, right? Where does he go to market? You don't just go and just start doing SEO and random videos and things like that. You need to target who's going to be using your product. Once you target those people or those businesses out, how do you get your foot in the door?
Well, you got to start. I mean, this is the basics that we talk about quite a bit. Is start with your market research, right? Figure out who is the user of the product that I'm building. Once you know who the user is, then you can start looking at things like keyword research. You can start looking at where do those people hang out, right? And when I say hang out, is that Facebook? Is that Instagram? Is that LinkedIn? Um, and then that's where you aggressively come up with a content strategy or an advertising strategy. Um, but if you don't know who your buyer is, it's very hard to market effectively. You can market to the masses, right? Like send out 100,000 flyers. It's kind of like the TikTok concept is if I get a million views, there's probably going to be some business owners on there, right? So
Right.
for content marketing, you can pretty much do whatever you want as long as you get an audience that's big enough. For
Yeah. So let's
advertising, yeah, go ahead.
I would say so. Let's assume that you're a roofer, right? Let's assume that you're a roofer and you're looking to do roofing work for somebody,
Mhm.
and your job your strategy is I'm going to go around neighborhoods and neighborhood, and I'm going to get business that way, right?
Yep.
You don't you could just go to each house and put a flyer in the door. You absolutely could do that, right? And your chances of getting for let's say you put 1,000 flyers out, maybe you'll get one or two customers, maybe,
Mhm.
right? But if you go and you start looking at the roofs individually, and you start seeing ones that have problems, and you target those homes specifically with a more direct campaign, right? Your chances are significantly better of getting the job and doing work for somebody.
Correct.
So it's kind of that's just an abstract example. So that's the same thing here. Whatever it is your software does, whatever it is your product does, or whatever, you
Mhm.
should target the people or the businesses that are going to use it and take your energy and time and money into channeling advertising directly to those people as opposed to blanket pushes.
Yeah. I mean, and that's is a lot of what marketing is about. Is this is where the results start mattering? Is like when you're fine tuning your marketing, you go from giving it to every house in the development versus versus targeting just houses that are 50 years old, right? And
Right.
then once you target, you narrow those down to okay, ones that haven't gotten their roof done in the last 10 years, right? So you keep narrowing in on your market. TikTok and some of these platforms are more like we're targeting the entire development. Hashtags and content allows you to start narrowing in a little bit. Yeah, it's marketing 101.
Now, Jesse on TikTok says, I'm going to assume that was supposed to be opinion, not option, but it says how to avoid your own. Well, it says option. How to avoid your own option affecting your research during market research. I'm assuming that means opinion.
I'm going to assume it is as well.
Yeah. So how do you avoid your own opinion affecting your research during market research?
Because a lot of this stuff, your opinion doesn't matter. Because
it really doesn't.
It doesn't, right? Like it's that classic example of when you tell people about your idea and everybody's like, oh, that's a wonderful idea. That's a great idea, right? And then you go, okay, would you be willing to give me $10 towards the first item? And they go, no. Oh, so it's not a great idea. It's not a great idea. Right. But yeah, market research is primarily data. So can your opinion skew the data? Yeah. I mean, but that's manipulating the data. But most of the time, the data is just the data. You can see whether or not certain things are in place, whether there's a market for something. Sometimes there's a surprise item where the market research might say, and then find out a year later the data's changed and now it's a perfect time, right?
Yeah. And also don't discount your own opinion as well, right? Your opinion. A lot of times when you're the one who's in the weeds every day, in the grind, et cetera, you get a gut feeling about something. Don't discount that. Oh, no. It doesn't mean you're right, but it also doesn't mean you're wrong, right? So don't ever discount it, but don't go looking for answers that don't go looking for answers that only satisfy what you think is correct. Right. So you have to look for all the answers. So if you think that the correct color of the product should be blue, you only look for answers that satisfy your opinion that it should be blue, that's not good. You obviously want to look around and find all the possible answers. But you may be absolutely right. So don't discount your own opinion. As Gummy's adjusting his screen.
Yeah. No, I was fixing the camera or the phone.
No problem.
So, but overall, like the data can also be pointed in the wrong direction, right? So let's say we're doing market research. Let's take the inhalers that the guy wanted to do the other day, the customizable inhalers, right?
Yep.
That market research is very hard to do because it's a product that doesn't really exist. So can I go look up how many customizable inhalers sold last year? Probably not, right? So like there can be holes in your research, and then you got to decide, are the holes in my research due to it not being feasible, or is there holes in the research because what I'm doing doesn't have anything comparable, right? So a lot of times, once again, market research, yes, it's your opinion. Yes, it's the data. Yes, it's gut feeling. There's a bunch of things that come into it when you are an entrepreneur and trying to figure out whether to launch a service or a product. There's not a yes or no most of the time, right?
Right.
Sometimes it could be a very likely no and a very likely yes, but there's no such thing as a guaranteed. You could do all the research in the world and still come out on the wrong end of it.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And that's the truth. And a lot of times it's just a matter of try again, try something different.
It's risk management, right? Like, yeah, I often think about like, how does Coke decide to come out with a new flavor, right? They do hours and hours and hours of product testing and bring in taste testers and try all kinds of things, right? And then they narrow it down to, okay, this is most likely going to be a flavor that we can sell, right?
Yeah.
And it can totally flop, right? Like, do you remember Crystal Pepsi?
Yes, I do.
Right? But it's one of those where, like, I saw it and I was like, this is cool. It looks like water, but it tastes like Pepsi, right? Like, I thought it was
the coolest
thing ever. And then when it came down to it, It was a product that literally, literally flopped, right? Like I thought it
So
was cool. Other people thought it was cool.
real
Yeah.
quick, Gummy. So everyone live on TikTok, I have someone who's at my apartment right now helping me with a few things. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back. Gummy, you can run this for just a minute.
Okay, I will run it. Right. Um, but yeah, I'll give you an example of other things, right? So, yeah, clear Pepsi is weird. It was kind of weird, but it was kind of cool, right? So, once again, I happened to work for a soda beer distributor company back in the day. And I remember when we were like testing different things and the amount of people that they would try things on to try to get a flavor right was amazing. Like, we're not talking 5 or 10, we were talking hundreds of people that came through and got to rate everything. And it's one of those, like, Crystal Pepsi made it through that process. So, statistically speaking, and based on research, it should have worked, but it didn't, right? It was like a gimmick that lasted, I don't know, maybe a year. And that's what can happen with a lot of products as well. And this is where the research and looking into it and doing your market research can be skewed. Like a few years ago, if you would have looked at it and said, hey, okay, fidget spinners, are they a thing? No, they weren't really a thing, right? There was no such thing as fidget spinners per se. And then what happened? Someone launched the fidget spinner and somehow it caught on, and now you can get fidget spinners everywhere, right? Like, if you would have asked me, is this a viable product? All of my research would have said probably not, right? Like, wouldn't have anything to compare it to. We wouldn't be able to like really narrow down. We would have to start looking at similar categories. So yes, could the research have helped? Absolutely. It could have given me an idea, but there was no guarantee whether or not that would fail or succeed. So, but since Mr. Turkanian isn't here, I am absolutely, oh no, because he has to give the legal disclosure. Yeah, the comparison factor is something that is often the hardest, especially if it's a new product, right? Like, let's take New Snaps as an example, because I believe he's still here. If I had to do market research on that, it's kind of difficult to do, because with this original product, first we would have to identify like how many of these aftermarket parts are sold, right? And then we have to look at it, well, it's an alternate option to something that's already being sold. So how many people do we think we can convince that his product is better than what they're used to? So yeah, it's one of those, that research would have been really hard to do in order to get like an accurate projection of how many are we going to sell, right? But once you launch it and you start seeing things move, then you can start revisiting your research, because now you have your own data as well and external data, and you can cross compare. And which is why we don't do market research once, we do it multiple times, right? And everybody that's launching something does it. Like, I am pretty sure that Arizona Iced Tea did not launch this Arnold Palmer half and half without doing extensive research.
You waited until I got back just for that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I was going to do it right before you came back, and I'm like, no, I need the legal disclosure at the end of it.
Oh my gosh, go ahead, do your thing.
But this delicious Arnold Palmer was probably taste tested by hundreds of people before they ever launched it, right? And do we think it would have been successful, right? You already have a celebrity on the can. You have a known drink that is tied to him. So chances were, as long as it didn't taste horrible, it was going to succeed. And in fact, it has. This has become a multi-billion-dollar product.
Who is not a sponsor of this show, mind you. It is just Gummy happens to really enjoy it. And but Arizona Iced Tea, if you're listening, Gummy would really love to hear from you. Would love for you to sponsor the show with a couple of cans. It's always asking for.
I prefer the diet, though. I love the light. I prefer the diet.
Yeah, so there you go.
So I New Snaps asked a question earlier. Did he?
Yeah. So, yep. We're going to get to that now. So, again, I apologize for stepping away. Long story, new apartment, a few things had to be fixed. Great guys just came in, took care of it. They're really nice. All right. So, from New Snaps, who says, and this is, so let's hold on before we get to his question. We've had many conversations with New Snaps. So, tell everybody what New Snaps does.
Well, now he's expanded, so now I gotta redo my research. But so originally, what he did was he had these magnetic things that go on the seat covers that go in boats, right? So one of the issues is when you have the loose covers in boats, and you're sailing or it's windy, these things can flop around or fall out or whatever. So they used to have clips on them. So he came up with a magnetic system that actually locks them in place. And honestly seems more secure than some of these clips that are on the market.
Yeah.
So that's the gist of it.
So New Snaps, great product. So New Snaps' question is, and I love this because this is everybody. Okay, if you're on TikTok, if you're watching this later, pay attention to this because this is very, very, very important. Okay. He says, I brought on 2 strategic investors for CFO and CMO. He gives them a certain percentage of ownership. Is there anything to be that I need to make sure is in the contract?
Performance.
Yes.
Performance.
No, there's so much more than that. There is so much. We can't go over all of it on the show today, New Snaps, but there is a lot that needs to be in that contract. Performance is absolutely one of them because here's what happens. I don't know if they're friends or they're just people that you found through partnerships or whatever, but none of that's all irrelevant. It doesn't matter. But what happens a lot of times is people will bring, let's say, friends into their business. Like, this is going to be my marketing guy, or this is going to be the person that does this, or the girl that does that, or whatever, right? That's what they bring on, and they do the right thing. They get an agreement together but unfortunately they put it together themselves. They don't usually have an attorney do it. And it says that this person's going to put this much money in and make this much money, et cetera, et cetera. What it doesn't do is say, what are the metrics? This is what we're talking about with performance. What are the metrics that person has to hit? What are the KPIs, the key performance indicators, to make sure that that person is staying on track and actually doing the job that I expect them to do? Because you're bringing on a CFO, for example, right? So your chief financial officer. You need to have clear-cut goals for that financial officer. They need to save the company. This is arbitrary. It could be a lot of different things. They save the company X% of money. They need to have reports ready by the 31st of each quarter, or no, whatever. Then by the end of each quarter, they need to do this. They need to do that. You need to make sure that those metrics and KPIs are built into the agreement. Because if they're not, there's nothing keeping that person from just saying, meh, I don't need to do a good job for this company. I lost interest. There's nothing keeping them, or that keeps them from doing that. But you still are responsible to pay them their percentage.
Yeah, I prefer contracts that earn you equity, not that give you equity up front, and then you have to hit indicators.
Yeah.
I prefer contracts that as you hit performance marks, then you get a certain percentage if you're going to join, right?
Exactly.
And the only other time that I would give away any part of any company that I have is if I'm trying to lock an employee in place, and then that giving of shares comes with a certain year responsibility where they have to stay with the business, right?
Yep.
And they still have to hit their performance stuff. Because like, we all wish that whenever we make someone an owner, that they become as invested as we were as the founders. Yeah. And that's just not the reality. I mean, I can give you a perfect example of this because I was talking to a guy yesterday who bought a restaurant, right? A takeout place, gifted 50% equity to the guy that had been running it before he bought it. And the guy literally stopped performing at the level he had been performing when he was an employee, because now he was an owner. So he thought he could get away with certain things, right?
With 50%, sometimes you can.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things where, like, he says half up front, half sweat equity. I am a fan of sweat equity from day one. I don't want to give you anything.
Yep.
Not unless you're already involved with a business. Like,
all right. Good. I'm sorry.
Like, I have a project manager, right? Um, she kind of handles everything now. That gives me a lot of free time to go out and sell and do things. That is someone I would offer equity with the condition that she would stay for another decade, right? But it's because she's also like, she's earned it to this point because she's been with me way longer than she thought she was going to be. She's still liking her job. She's still loving the fact that she can grow. And she has the ability to grow into whatever I need her to be. So it's someone where I would want to lock her in place because she's just really good at what she does. And I believe she would be a key player in the growth of that business specifically.
Yeah, and you're that's a great point. When you have an employee that you want to lock in, you can provide them with equity. What I was going to get to for new snaps is something to consider. Now, it might be too late. I'm not sure how far down this rabbit hole you are, but understand that there's different types of equity as well. There's different types of ownership interest as well, right? You have your equity interest, which is the financial interest, and you have your managerial interest, which is control. Right. So take an LLC, for example, you can actually separate your membership interest into both equity and membership, meaning that equity interest is the person. So let's say you have 100% of both, 100% equity, 100% membership. You can say that for these two people, you're going to give them a certain percentage of the equity interest, but no percentage of the membership interest. And what that does is it allows you as the owner of the business to keep full control over the business itself. They only have an interest in the equity of the business, which in most cases is really all the person's interested in anyway. Because you can bring on partners that don't eventually get the right to tell you what to do. Now, you gave a small percentage of ownership, but you could bring somebody on 10, 15, 20% equity ownership in a business, which is good for them because they get, they're thinking about the money, but it's also good for you because they don't have any rights in saying what you can and can't do with the business.
Right.
But this also goes back to your original question. This needs to be in your contract, right? If you don't put in the contract, or your operating agreement, let's say for an LLC, if you don't put in the contract, who has what say over how the business runs? What can happen is if you don't say that majority rules, for example, or let's say majority rules, right? Majority ownership interest rules. What'll happen is it could be interpreted that you're voting as an individual. So if there's three of you, you each get one vote, as opposed to if you gave this person 5% and this person 5% and you have 90%, you have 90% of the votes. If that's not written in the contract, that 90% that you own might not be powerful to override the other two. So you have to be really careful with the stuff that you put, that who you bring on and how you bring them into the business. So when you're asking, is there anything that needs to be in the contract? You and I could have a 2-hour conversation about what needs to be in that contract. I'm sorry to say, that's not obviously I can't give you all the answers right now over the podcast, but there's a lot that needs to be in that contract. Now, New Snaps follows up with, we need money infusion to scale. That's all businesses. Yeah. Need both positions, but can't afford the salaries in negotiations. Now, okay, that's good. I'm glad that you're in negotiations. What I would suggest is give them equity ownership, not managerial ownership. But if they want both, that's fine. But just make sure it's in the agreement what that means. That managerial ownership, if you're giving them, let's arbitrarily say, as I don't want to give anybody your business, arbitrarily 10%, so 5 and 5. They have 5% of the voting rights. They have 5. The other one has 5% of the voting rights. So you have 90% of the voting rights. This is incredibly important when you're bringing partners into your business. So, by the way, Dennis Rodman had a question. We'll get to you in just a minute, I promise. But I just want to make sure that, because I don't want to see, because New Snaps is a great idea. Obviously, he's scaling, he's trying to grow. I just don't want to see him get caught. I have seen too many scenarios where I've been doing this for a while, guys. I've seen too many scenarios where the person who started the business, had the idea, did all the marketing, got the product recognized, brought in partners, and those partners found a way to overthrow him and get that person out. Yep. And that person now has nothing to do with the business that they started. So you have to be really, really, really careful when you're doing this. I would say without question, New Snaps, work with an attorney on this. This is one of the things where there are certain things where I'll say, yeah, I guess you could do it yourself. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. This is not something you want to handle yourself. I promise you, you could get in big trouble later on if you don't understand what you're doing and how to protect yourself. This is your business. You need to protect it.
And also, as far as like needing cash infusion, I mean, depending on what type of money you're talking about, but borrowing money is not a bad thing if you're growing, because then you're not giving up long-term profits either. So like, people are often afraid of borrowing, but if you give up equity, that's money lost forever. That is portion of your profits gone forever, right? A loan, yes, it's rough and you have to pay a little bit of interest over whatever period of time you have it, but you could make that back in so many multiples by not giving away 5 or 10 or 20% of a business, right? Like, we borrowed, this is going back, probably quite a few years. We borrowed like $250,000. And we made the decision that it was better to borrow the money. We had the option of bringing in a private equity that was going to basically hand over the $250,000. And they wanted something like, I want to say it was like 10% of the business, 12% of the business. And we went back and looked at it, that if we would have taken that, that loan that we ended up paying back with interest is still to this day drastically cheaper than if we would have given up part of the company and lost those profits that we had. Like, the numbers are astounding. Like, I think we borrowed $250,000, we ended up paying $330,000 back. But at the same time, if we would have given up that equity, it would have cost us over 7 figures by now.
Yeah. So you spent $80,000 to get $250,000.
Correct.
Whereas if you would have brought on partners, it would have cost you over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And counting. That was up until last year, right?
Right.
And we're really growing faster now. So the cost of that, bringing in the private equity partner. Now, I get it. Sometimes you bring on partners, not just for the money, but also for their expertise and knowledge.
Yes.
Sometimes that is what drives the business forward. Like, if you're not good at marketing, and you bring in a CMO, for example, right? A chief marketing officer. And thanks to that marketing officer, you go from $500,000 a year to $4 million a year. Absolutely, giving up equity has been hands down worth it, right? Because they drove the business to heights that you couldn't have done so yourself. So like, I'm always, whenever someone tells me, hey, I'm taking on a partner, I'm giving up part of my business, it's one of those things I really, really want to dig into why. Like, what is the reason you're doing this? Because it may seem like a good idea on the surface, but the more you dig, you find out that that's a problem that could be solved in a different way. That's long-term not going to cost you as much.
Yep. So I hope that helps you, New Snaps. Again, I'd hate to push the attorney thing, because I'm not trying to sell business here for myself or anybody else. But this is one of those situations where you got to get an attorney. You really do. You do not want to mess with this and do the wrong thing, because like Gummy said, it could cost you down the line million. I mean, you have a great product. I love your product. Gummy and I talk about it all the time for some reason, but I love your product and I really do think it's going to be successful. So you're in the early stages right now. You don't want to look back 5 years from now and say, man, I gave those guys X percentage and that's worth how many millions of dollars when I could have just borrowed $100,000 and done the same thing.
Yep.
So I'm not saying don't bring in partners. Partners can be very helpful as long as they're willing to do the work, and that's why you put the metrics and the requirements, performance requirements in the contracts. So again, work with an attorney to get that done. Please do that. All right, now we have another question. This is from Dennis Rodman. Dennis says,
"Hold on." He said, I'm definitely lawyering up. Thanks, guys. It's getting bigger and it's scary. Yes. Yeah. And the bigger it gets, the scarier it gets.
Yeah. And honestly,
all kinds of nuances that you're going to have to start looking at and thinking about. And And
Yeah.
I saw he said, I'm no CEO. Well, all this stuff is grooming you into becoming one.
Yeah. Now, New Steps, I don't know where you're at, but I know you and Gummy are in contact. So if you want to contact Gummy, I can try to find a recommendation for you in whatever state you're in, and we and maybe can give you a hand with that. All right. So Dennis Rodman says, "Do either of you work in the popcorn manufacturing industry? I want to produce novelty popcorns, but do not have connections for producers or suppliers. Why do you sound so surprised?"
I'm not surprised. I love novelty popcorn. There's a popcorn
Okay.
factory right up the street here. And
Okay.
I go there at least 4 times a year and probably drop $200 every time I go.
Okay. So no, we're not in the industry, but obviously Gummy has a fascination with popcorn.
Well, so when I came here as an exchange student, what was the question? Sorry, I missed what the question was.
Oh, he wants to know if we have any connections because he wants to do novelty popcorn. He doesn't have any connections for producers or suppliers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, a lot of these popcorn factories are smaller mom and pop type. So when I came as an exchange student back in the 90s, I lived 7 houses up from the popcorn factory. So, like, you would open your door at 6 o'clock in the morning, it would smell like popcorn. You would come home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it would smell like popcorn. So, like, I used to go there when I lived next to it. I was there at least once a week just grabbing popcorn, right? And this is a relatively big popcorn factory. Like, they make some of the tins that you see at like the grocery stores and stuff like that, where they make the 3 kinds that are always in. But if you go to their store, they have a lot more options. But a lot of these are mom and pop owned.
Right.
And you would be surprised how easy it is to literally go knock on their door saying, hey, I want to get into the novelty popcorn industry. Is there any advice you can give me? Right? Because at the end of the day, the market is big enough. It doesn't matter whether you can have 2 factories side by side, and they're probably going to be hitting very different markets, right? And this is true of almost any product. Like, people are always surprised to find out that, like, me and another marketing company, we both do very similar things, but we send clients back and forth all the time. Right? Like, if I get a client that is specifically B2B and only does B2B, I send them to someone else because I don't enjoy doing that work. It's not our strong suit. But I have plenty of people I could talk to. I could go talk to my B2B marketing counterpart, so to speak, and go learn all this stuff. And he would tell me everything that he knows about B2B marketing because he still wouldn't consider us a competitor. Right?
Yeah.
Would we be competing for some clients? Probably. Does that make us head-on competitors? Absolutely not. Right?
No.
So, yeah, I don't care what industry you're in, what you're looking to start, what you're looking to do. There's always someone with access to a person that does something like what you are trying to accomplish. And that should always be your first step, is go talk to someone that's done it.
Yeah. And I know it sounds counterintuitive. If you're not in business or you've been in business life for a short period of time, it sounds counterintuitive. Why would someone help me get started just to compete against them? And a good part of the reason is because a good business owner knows that the more they broaden their network, the better. It doesn't matter who they're broadening it with. The more they broaden their network, the better. And here's what's going to happen. And this would be so. Let's say someone came to me and said, "Hey, Mike, I just passed the bar. I want to start my own practice. What do I do?" I'll give them. I'll bring up for a weekend. We'll go away for a weekend. Now I'll tell them everything they need to know. And why? Why would you do that? You'll lose clients. No, I'll bet you I can actually gain clients from doing that. Here's why. That person, and just like with the popcorn, that person is going to start a business. They're going to put money into it. They're going to market, et cetera, et cetera. They are going to come across things they can't handle yet. It's too small, right? They're too new at it. They're not going to know what to do. Who do you think they're going to reach out to? Me.
Right.
right? They're going to send that business to me. So same thing with you and the popcorn. That person's been in the business for 20 years. They know what they're doing. They can produce, I have no idea, 100,000 tins in a week. I have no clue, right? You can only produce 5,000 tins in a week. So when you get that order for 50,000 tins that you can't handle, who are you going to turn it over to? The person that helped you get into the business. And a smart entrepreneur knows that. And they will sit with you and teach you everything you need to know.
So I ran into a guy the other day that does social media marketing for a handful of people, including he handles like a couple of Chick-fil-A places and all that stuff. And I was talking to him and he's like, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I'm like, you look familiar, but like I can't put my finger on it. Right. He's like, "You don't remember when I came in for a job interview and you proceeded to spend the next 6 hours talking to me about doing social media marketing on my own?" And I'm like, yeah, I vaguely remember, yes, like it happens more than you probably think. He's like, "You have no idea how much that interview changed my life, because I walked out of that interview knowing I wanted to do this on my own, and all the advice that you gave me the ability to go start." And I was like, "Oh, good, I guess." Right?
That's awesome. That's great.
Do I see him as a competitor? Absolutely not.
No.
Right? And this is someone that applied for a job with me. But
see, that's great.
Yeah. And I actually had a guy once. I hired him on a 6-month, knowing that he was only going to be there for 6 months, because he literally came to me and said, "Hey, I want to start my own website design business. What, is there stuff you can teach me and things I need to know?" And I flat out told him, and I'm like, "If you want to, I'll hire you for 6 months. You can work for us doing website design. I will teach you about the business side of things. And after 6 months, you can go start your own." And he now has a pretty thriving website design business. And guess what? He refers SEO clients to us.
Yeah. I'll give you another example. All right. So at my house, I got a pool at my house, right? And I am Mr. Fix It, Mr. Handy. I try to take care of as much stuff as I can at the house without hiring somebody to do it. And I've been around electricians, plumbers, everything my entire life. So I'm pretty good with most stuff. Pools were a whole new thing to me, but I learned over time, right? So what I really wanted to know was I wanted to learn how to close the pool properly. Opening it's a piece of cake. Closing the pool, getting the pipes blown out and stuff like that. I really I wanted to learn how to do that properly. So this was before I met my friend Tom Smitano with SNS Spas. Tom's great. You need a pool or spa in the Bucks County area, he's your guy. Anyway, aside of that, I called around to a couple different places and I said, "Hey, I need to get my pool closed, but I would like you to, I'll even pay your guy to teach me how to do it." And every one of them, their response was, "Well, if we teach you, you're not going to be a customer anymore. So we can't give away our expertise." Like, "Oh, I'll pay your guy time to." No, we can't do that. Finally, I did get a guy to come out and teach me how to do it. And he was smart. He knew that by teaching me how to, I was going to be a customer of his for a long time. And that's exactly what happened, because closing a pool is so complicated. It's really, really difficult. It really is. Again, this is in-ground pool. It's a little bit bigger, so it has a lot more stuff that you have to do it right, and it can get quite complicated. So he knew that. He knew that he was going to come show me, but that I really wasn't going to be able to do it on my own. I'm thinking a compressor, like, a small, like, little home compressor. No. Need like the giant tanks in order to do this properly.
With your pool,
there was no way.
Because you have the little tub and everything else attached to it.
Yeah, the hot tub and everything attached to it. So there's so much that goes into it. So is that he knew that. Because he asked me about the pool stuff. He was like, I know what he was thinking in the back of his head was, "Oh, this guy's never going to be able to do it on his own, but I'll come out there, I'll show him, and when he can't do it, I'm the guy he's going to hire." Yeah. And sure enough, in the next 5 years, he was the guy I hired.
Yes, it was.
And when something went wrong with the pool, who do I reach out to? That guy. But all those people that said no along the way, they lost a customer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So when I hired my pool guy, the first thing he did was he walks in, he looks at the pool, he looks at me, and he goes, "You're pretty handy, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You don't really need me to open and close the pool, do you?" And I'm like, "Well, I've never done it." So he walks out to his truck, he comes back, and he hands me an instruction manual like this thick. And so I didn't know that he's actually a chemist by trade. Like he went to school to be a chemist. So in this book, there was everything I needed to know about opening the pool, closing the pool, everything about the chemical balances, how to, if there's too much alkalinity, what do I add? Like basically everything to operate my pool. And
Yeah.
he's opened and closed my pool since I had it.
There you go. See, that's what's going to happen, because those people are the ones that if they all they got to do is take 10, 15 minutes to help you out. That's it. You're theirs forever. It really is. Yeah.
Yep.
The only reason I switched pool guys was because I became really good friends with another guy who does pools, and I felt like, you know what, this is, but still, it's really great. So New Snaps has a question. I'll get to Jason in a second. Not a question. New Snap says, I had another company's client call me to complain about their product, and I ended up selling them our product.
Yep.
Perfect. Exactly. You
Happens
listen to
all
their
the time.
complaints, you address their concerns, you address their emotional state, right?
Mhm.
And what they do, they wind up buying from you because they trusted you. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. You have to get people to trust you. If you're going to be in business, I don't care if it's a product or a service, no one's going to buy from you unless they trust you, right? That's just the way it works. It doesn't. And New Snap says, be the better product. Yes, you can be the better product, but if the person doesn't trust you, they're never going to buy from you.
The funny thing is, I get the vast majority of my clients from that they have been elsewhere before they come to us, right? And then we just tell them everything that's going on and how everything's going to work and show them all the data and show them the stuff. And they go, my other companies never showed me all this. And I'm like, oh, this is the behind the scenes. This is where we can tack on fees and stuff. So the more I show you, the less I can hide it. And they go, why would you do that? And I'm like, same reason I have a price list I can send to you. I don't have to custom quote you. Like, I know what work is involved. I know what needs to be done. I'm not going to charge you more just because you're a $3 million business versus a $100,000 business. What's going to change is the amount of scale of work that you need, but it's proportionate, right? Like if I'm doing, let's say we're doing social media marketing for someone, right? If I'm doing 2 posts a week and running 1 ad campaign, I know what time that's going to take. Well, if you're bigger, that's probably not going to be enough for you. So you're going to need 3 ad campaigns and 4 posts a week. Well, proportionally, we know that's going to cost. So I have a price list item for it. And people are always surprised when, like, I go to an initial meeting and I'm like, here, I'll leave the price list with you. And they're like, wait, you don't have to like do a custom quote for us? And I'm like, no, most of the time I don't. Like, your situation is probably going to fall right into one of these.
So, and then Jason says, is there a non-compete in your state? I'm not sure who that's directed toward. What do you think?
So I think he was asking if we have non-competes here. So yes, we do have non-competes in Pennsylvania.
But they're looked down upon in the courts. You have to have very specific reasons why you need a non-compete. You can't just so it's. Let's say the rules are. Let's say the court rules are changing. It used to be non-compete, you can't compete. Now it's wait, hold on. We're not going to stop people from working, right? So if you have a non-compete for the typical worker in your office, a lot of times the courts won't enforce it, or they'll enforce it very, very leniently. Because if a non-compete can't work somewhere for 5 years within 100 miles, it's just too broad and too radical, and you can't stop someone from working. Where non-competes really come into play and become hold on, I got to do the sticker, and become a really enforceable is when you're talking about someone who has a key role, a C-level exec, and maybe that's what Jason's talking about. Oh, he's probably talking about New Snaps, what state New Snaps is in, and if there's non-competes. So yes, that's another thing. Thank you, Jason. That makes more sense. So new steps, yeah, make sure you're going to want non-compete in there as well. But if you are a C-level, if you have ownership, something like that, director, you're a manager with people below you, then the higher you are on that totem pole, that is the more likely that the non-compete will be enforced. But if you're just the everyday, and I guess this is just general knowledge now, if you're just the everyday worker, certainly in Pennsylvania, other states are starting to follow this as well. Non-competes aren't enforced nearly as much because you can't keep people from getting a job. Now, there's a difference, keep in mind, between a non-compete and a non-solicitation. Non-compete is I work at a grocery store as a cashier. Non-compete says I can't go work at another grocery store as a cashier. No, get out of here. That's not going to work. Non-solicitation is I work at a grocery store as a cashier. I go work at another grocery store as a cashier, and I try to bring 5 people with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's non-solicitation. That's a very different story. That is generally always enforced.
Yeah, I know. A buddy of mine is a physical therapist, and he had signed up as a PT for an office, and they had a non-compete that was valid for a year after he left.
Yeah.
Within a 5-mile radius.
Okay, that's fair. 5 miles is okay.
Correct. So basically what that was doing was making sure, because the average person apparently is willing to travel like 2.8 miles for most of their services on average. So they just put in, it was basically, it was just a way for the PT that trained them and gave them the experience and worked with them. It was just a way for them to make sure that he couldn't go to the PT up the street and take that entire client list with it, which makes a lot of sense. But like, unless you absolutely need to, I am not a huge fan of non-competes. I'm just not. Like, I want people to get the experience and the training and then be able to move on to a different job if they really want to, right?
Yeah.
I prefer making our workplace, setting it up in such a way that people really don't want to leave, right? Like, not to feel like they're locked into place. And there's all kinds of things you can do that work better long-term, I think, than non-competes. Because if someone's going to if someone's going to leave, they're going to find a way around your non-compete.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, yeah.
Anyway. All right. With that, everyone, our hour's up, Gummy.
I know.
I know, it's crazy.
You look like you have stuff to do.
I do, yeah. Some more guys just are outside waiting, so I'm going to have to go. But that's our hour's up anyway. So, new snaps, Jason, Jesse, everyone who participated today from TikTok, thank you so much. We really appreciate you guys being here each week and making the show so much more fun. It really is more fun when there's live interaction. It really is great. Yeah. So we will be back here next Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time.
Yep.
11:30-ish, right? Eastern
time.
Well,
yeah, today was weird. Like, I got stuck doing that thing they call work, where I actually had to get something done before I left.
Yep.
And then I was like, I'm still okay on time. And then there was a lane closure, and I sat in the lane closure for 4 minutes, and I'm like,
nice.
It was just one of those days. And then when I saw you looked like frazzled. I was like, I guess.
A lot going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So with that, everyone, thank you so much. I'm Mike Turkanian.
Gummy.
And this is the Starter Scrapping podcast, and we will see you next week. Take care, man.
Finding the camera?
I 2 cameras going.
I'll see you.